What's up, guys? Red light is on. Dave Van Auken, and I'm joined by two of my absolute favorite people, especially in the MMA space. Let's stick to the left. Ladies first, of course. Ben and Banana, Elle Dawson. Elle, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
Doing good, doing good. And then more to my right, we're 14, 15, 16, doesn't matter. Highly ranked UFC lightweight. Big year 2023 sets up a bigger year in 2024. Grant Dawson, how are you?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me on again.
Of course, brother, of course. So yeah, literally just wanted to chat it up. A huge week, right? UFC 284 is here. We had a little bit of a break, had a big show in Brazil. And now last weekend with the Bellator and Fedor really had a lot. Our friends fought in the PFL. It seemed like the UFC had a little bit off week, even though they're there. But now we're here, UFC 284. I don't remember, guys. I'm a huge UFC guy, 15 years in it. Do you ever remember a fight, number one versus number two, pound for pound in the world? I feel like this is the best matchup the UFC has ever maybe put on. Is that an overstatement? What do you guys think about that?
Go ahead.
I was actually just talking about this with Dan Lambert the other day. I don't think there's ever been number one pound for pound versus number two pound for pound because John Jones and Jose Aldo were like at the top of the pound for pound list for so long, and they're so far in weight classes. There's no way they'd ever fight each other.
Right.
So, and I'm a little disappointed in the UFC. I feel like they aren't promoting this fight. Like, this is one of the biggest fights of the year. It's the beginning of the year, but like even last year, it's one of the biggest fights of last year, and I think that they're not giving it the promotion that it needs.
I wanted to let you say that because you literally just said that to me yesterday.
Yeah. No, it's been like that universally. It's been like, hey guys, what are we doing? I know it's not the week and we're finally here and it's starting to pick up a little bit, but still it just seems under promoted or just undervalued. It's really weird I don't know why, right? Like I've seen a lot of Volkanovski stuff. I think we're seeing it's less on Makhachev and Grant, I don't know how you feel about this. Like a lot of people say your job is to just win fights, right? They always say the fighter's job is to win fights, but then of course there is a side to it, right? And we've talked about this off air about promoting yourself and being out there more and promoting, of course, the fight. And someone like Conor McGregor does that immensely, right? He does that way more than actually fight it. And then that's why some people he gets polarized. But is it Islam Makhachev's fault, or do you think it's 100% the UFC's fault of not pushing it and throwing this up more?
I feel like it's the UFC's fault. I feel like they've gotten to the point where they're like, we don't need to promote fights anymore because we have such a hardcore fan base right now that they're going to know what it is. I'm sure the UFC will sell out. I'm sure they'll do fine with this fight, even with the little promotion. So if you don't have to spend the money, I think their mindset is don't spend the money.
I also think like Dana has, he has his finger in a lot of different pots right now. Like he's got Power Slap going on and you see him promoting the crap out of that. And I think his mindset, like you said, is probably like, this is something that needs to be built. And I've already built this. This is good. It can stand on its own. And I still think it's almost, I don't know. I feel like it's almost disrespectful to the event because it is such a great event. And like we see more heavier promotion for cards that like Nate Diaz is co-main eventing than we do for something this big in combat sports.
And that's where I feel there's a disconnect, right? There's something off with it. And I don't know if it's like you said, it could be the UFC could be like, hey guys, we did pound for pound one versus pound for pound two. We did it. Like we're just going to sell almost the more of the sport of it and not talk about Islam's back history and family and his winning streak, or same thing with Alexander Volkanovski. And I don't know if it's the UFC or I don't know if it's, like I said, I do feel I've been seeing Volkanovski and I've been seeing him over especially the last 5 days, start to pick it up on ESPN and other networks and him pushing the fight. And he seems uber confident, and we'll get into that in a second because I'm leaning a little bit that way. And I was told I'm a complete, absolutely off my rocker on that, but we'll get into that. But I do feel like we're not hearing really anything from Makhachev's side. Like it's almost peep quiet. I literally watched the countdown late last night after the kids went down. and it just seemed it was mainly on Volkanovski. Like Makhachev is the champion, and he's the one defending his championship, and it's just hard to get any kind of feedback from him. That's from afar.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is super odd. Like, I understand that it's Volkanovski's like home country, it's his home turf, but I think that he is definitely like more of a fan favorite, and so it's probably easier to promote him. Islam tends to be a little bit quieter. Like, he's not super loud on social media as is. And so I can see where that's coming from, but I agree, like, that I think that's on the UFC to go, like, go do film on his camp, like interview his teammates and his coaches and do that. I don't know. I wonder if maybe he's trying to stay quieter. Maybe there's been like some disconnect because of like Khabib not coaching him this time. I'm honestly not sure, but yeah, I agree. I think it's a little odd.
All right. So I do want to get into the fight, the brass tactics of it. There we go. Pretty good at this. I also definitely want to get in the co-main event. So we're talking about how much the main event is getting undervalued. I think the co-main has not even been talked about. Josh Emmett and Yair Rodriguez. I know some people are maybe not thrilled that it's for the interim featherweight championship. Regardless for what it's for, it's a great fight. Really two deserving guys. Two guys that's been in their division for a long time. I really want to give that some limelight. Then I do want to tip a little bit on the Gamebred boxing. They, yesterday took a lot of buzz from even this UFC week from yesterday, and then maybe there at the very end. There's this guy from Ireland who's going to be on tough against Michael Chandler that maybe we'll just dive in just a little bit. But all right, UFC 284. Yair Rodriguez, Josh Emmett. Talk to me about this fight. Two guys, two studs in the featherweight division. I think two deserving guys to fight for a big prize. First question for both of you. Do you like that it's for the interim featherweight championship? And two is, two and three, who do you have winning the fight? And what's the best option for Volkanovski? Who is the toughest opponent for Volkanovski, maybe late summer, early fall?
I like that it's for the interim belt.
Okay.
I think that it's been a while since we've had a contender in featherweight that isn't Max Holloway, like a real contender. And I like that they're giving opportunities to some of these guys who have been beating the highest level in that division. So I'm excited to see Volkanovski fight somebody else for the featherweight belt after this weekend. And also, like, he has been preparing for this super fight as well. I hate to see divisions at like a standstill. I hate when that happens. Like, I want to see these young prospects getting their shots and like seeing the division advance. So I love that. I have no idea who I think is going to win this fight.
Okay.
They're both super. I don't even know if I've been back and forth on the over and the under because you have two incredibly dangerous strikers. I will say this: we were watching the Embedded the other night with Josh Emmett, and he looks incredible. Like,
Agreed.
He looks phenomenal. He's in fantastic shape. He is so fast, and so I think right now I'm leaning Josh Emmett. Okay, but man, it's going to be one of the best fights, like in featherweight history. Yeah,
I agree. And before you go, Grant, like I think both guys are probably underrated in their skills. Both guys have had a great 3-4 year run, and I thought about it. Their last wins are kind of a little strange. Remember, Yair beat Ortega due to like the injury of the shoulder. And remember, Josh Emmett's last fight was that main event versus Calvin Kattar, who Calvin Kattar is one of the toughest son of a bitches in the UFC. And a lot of people thought it was super close. So regardless of who you thought won, it was a super close fight. But it felt like Emmett won. And then what happens when that is, the fans are like, oh, Emmett won. That means Calvin. Like, they started like, kind of backing Calvin a little bit. So I feel like both of their last performances maybe wasn't, I don't want to say their best performances, just from the fan side, just probably didn't get sometimes the buzz you want from Chimaev beating Gilbert Burns. It's like, boom, there's the buzz. There we go. We're pushing it. And that's why I think a lot of people are kind of maybe overlooking this fight. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Like, they're not. There's asterisks.
And so then, Elle, who do you have to face Volkanovski in the future? Yair or Emmett? Who do you think has the best chance of beating Volk or any?
I do think Volkanovski beats both of them.
Okay.
I do.
Great.
I think.
Great.
I think they're. it's been a long time. We'll get into this later, but this is part of the reason I think you're nuts, is it's been a long time since Volk has fought a high level wrestler. Right. And like both of those guys fit styles that Volk matches up well against. They are definitely more dangerous than Max Holloway, which I think is interesting. Like there is that danger factor. Yair had a super close fight with Max, and he had some moments where he really hurt Max. But then Josh Emmett is, I think, more different than anybody that Volk has fought in recent months, recent years. Like he's built more similarly to him. He can wrestle some. It's not like his go-to. Like he's obviously a striker, but he can wrestle. And he's ridiculously powerful and fast. And I think he might be able to match that in and out speed that Volk is so good at. And so like I would probably say Josh Emmett might be a tougher matchup style-wise, but I do think Volk gets it done in both of those.
Okay. Grant?
To go back to your first question, I don't like that this is an interim title fight. Okay. I don't know if this was the first interim title fight or if it was just the first one that I remember, but the first interim title fight that I remember was between Uriah Faber and Renan Barão, because there was a question if Dominic Cruz was going to come back and defend. He was on tough. He got hurt. He pulled out. Renan Barão stepped in to win the interim title. That's the first interim title I remember. I feel like an interim title is, we don't know if this guy's coming back. We don't know when this guy is coming back. And there's a possibility that he may never come back. So let's not hold this up. Let's put a stamp on who gets the first title shot when he comes back.
Right.
Volkanovski's fighting on the same card. Yeah. And it's not like he's a huge, 55 or I'm sorry, a huge featherweight and he's going up because he can't make 45 anymore. Whether he wins or loses, he's coming back down to 145. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. In regards to how I see these fights going is I think that Yair is a very bad matchup for Josh Emmett because of the distancing and Josh Emmett's refusal to wrestle. I do think that Yair doesn't stand a chance against Volkanovski because of the wrestling, and I actually think that Josh Emmett could beat Volkanovski. I think that his wrestling is good enough to keep from getting taken down, and his power is ridiculous. And Volkanovski runs into things, He's a very aggressive fighter. He likes to feint a lot, but he comes in hard. And when you come in hard on a guy like Josh Emmett, you're playing a 50-50 game there because he's so powerful. Doesn't get tired. He sets really good traps. I see Yair winning this fight because of the movement and because of staying out of his way, and Josh Emmett just being like, no, I'm not going to wrestle. I'm gonna knock you out. I'm going to knock you out, and then doesn't get the knockout. Now, if he does get the knockout, I could see Josh Emmett becoming the new champ. And the biggest thing is, and this is, very circumstantial, but the biggest thing is when you have a guy like Volkanovski he's beating these guys off of mystique right now. Now he's the best in the world for sure, but he's got so much mystique behind him. People lose before they go in there. So if he beats Islam, that mystique goes through the roof.
Yeah.
When I believe he loses to Islam, I think a lot of people are going to be like, okay, this dude is beatable. This guy's a human. Like, he can lose. We can beat him, And I think that goes right into a guy like Josh Emmett because Josh is such a mental monster.
Dude, great point. Great. Unbelievable points. I agree immensely with the Yair points, right? To me, no disrespect, but I think Yair is Max Holloway light. We saw them fight. We saw them kind of do their thing, and he just wasn't as good as Max. And, of course, you see Max fight Volkanovski for 45 minutes. So, I think we've seen that, and I don't think – so I agree. I'm kind of leaning Yair to beat Josh as well, too. But then I don't like Yair versus Volk. And I love your point. This is so good. Imagine if Josh Emmett does catch Yair, knocks him out, and then, he literally just waits there because, he's thinking he's going to fight Volkanovski. And then Volkanovski kind of pulls what Oliveira just did with Makhachev, kind of gets beat quickly in 7 minutes, and the mystique is gone a little bit. And let's just be honest. Josh Emmett, for one's got the pop, and two, he is this dark horse, really good wrestler, but doesn't do it anymore. And if he sees Makhachev just, wrestle, I don't want to use the word F, but wrestle Volkanovski, maybe Josh Emmett be like, okay, guys, for this one, I am going to wrestle. Like, I want to win the championship. Looks like he's a great family guy. He's always with his wife. Maybe he's like, hey, what?
No, sorry, my dog. My dog.
Oh, I was like, Dave, don't say that or something. I was like, maybe he's not a good family man. I don't know. I just think Josh Emmett can have the blueprint how to beat Volkanovski. All right, so there we go. I think we gave the co-main event some good service. Main event. Let's just rip this Band-Aid off. I'm leaning Volkanovski. It's home turf, all the momentum, so many different things. Elle, you told me on the phone how crazy I am, and a lot of it made absolutely perfect sense. So I'm gonna let you kind of run with it and make me look like a fool. So why is Islam Makhachev going to absolutely destroy Volkanovski?
Obviously, anything can happen in this sport. However, we're looking just like I mentioned earlier, it's been a long time since Volkanovski has fought a good wrestler. And Chad Mendes was the last one, and he took Volkanovski down. Islam is a significantly better wrestler, and he is significantly bigger. And I think that the size is going to play the biggest factor. But on top of that, too, I hear a lot of people saying what you're saying, Dave, where it's like, oh, like he's going to be in his head. It's his home country. If it was anybody else,
right,
I might take that at a little bit higher stock. But this is Islam Makhachev. Yeah. And we talked about this, like Grant loves this story. He's the one that told me this. Khabib's dad took that group up into the mountains and they just lived in the woods and trained. Like, these guys have been competing at the highest level. They were taught extreme mental toughness from a very young age. I don't think that shakes a guy like Islam Makhachev. I don't think Khabib defended his belt right after his dad died. Like, right. I don't think it shakes guys like that. I think that he's going to come in and do exactly what he does, whether Khabib is in his corner, whether he's fighting in Abu Dhabi or Australia. I just don't think it matters.
Yeah, some really good points.
I think another big thing, too, that a lot of people aren't really looking at is that Volkanovski isn't a huge finisher. He's not finishing the guys at 45.
Right. And
let's be honest, Islam Makhachev is a 70-pounder that somehow lies to the scale and makes weight at 155. It's humongous. He couldn't finish Max Holloway, which nobody has, like, at that level. Whatever. He couldn't finish Brian Ortega, even though I do kind of think that should be stopped. I think his biggest finish would be the Korean Zombie was his biggest finish, who's like 100 years old. And if you put MMA, you put MMA damage in there, he's 200. Right. So I feel like to beat Islam, you got to have a guy that is a better wrestler, in better shape, or you got to have a guy that has ridiculous stopping powers with something, with whether it's submissions like Charles Oliveira or it's ridiculous punching power. And I don't see that with Volkanovski. I think he's a grinder that strikes, and I just don't see anybody outgrinding Islam Makhachev right now, especially somebody that is as already is giving up a size advantage, being somebody that makes 145 regularly. And I hate that people are like, oh, he used to play rugby and he weighed 200. Like, who cares?
He doesn't anymore.
Right.
I used to wrestle at 119. Does that mean that I'm not going to have it? Like this is the now, people. Right. Like, quit living in the past.
Right. I love this question. I've on the, literally spent a couple of days now. I know both of you guys. Oh, it's mainly for Grant too.
So. Gonna let him out real quick, and then sorry.
All good. I'll waste some time here. Oh, actually, you know what people should do during this time? They should go to the MMAshark.com. Make sure you subscribe to the MMA Shark. There you go, MMAshark.com. All right, so here's my great question for Grant. So I know both of you guys watch everything, right? Every Saturday night, we even talk and text through it. I know you guys love watching all fights, UFC, Bellator. Shout out to Johnny Eblin right now, one of the greatest middleweights alive.
No. The greatest middleweight. He is the best in the world.
I love that. Maybe, hey, I want to have that debate with you. That's such a good one too. I love that. my question to you is, how much extra sauce does this give you, Grant? You literally told me last month on this show, you're like, Dave, I'm his replacement. Like, I'm the guy to beat him 18 months from now, 12 months, 20 months, somewhere in that range, right? This is a very, very big year for you personally. How much extra juice is it to see him in a big match, a big title fight, to see what Volkanovski does? Maybe his jab works. You're like, whoa, I didn't think, I really never saw a jab work against to Islam. I'm going to take this. Or is it all wrestling? How much extra juice does this fight do to you personally?
This is great. Anytime that I can get more film on Islam Makhachev. And see, here's the thing is, I'm not looking for somebody to beat Islam. I'm not looking for somebody to show me a hole in his game. I just want somebody to show me what he does in certain positions. What does he do when he fights somebody that doesn't mentally lose to him already? I feel like my teammate, Thiago Moises, he fought him, had a really good fight against him. And we've seen in that fight that if you keep your composure and you go in and don't get crazy, Thiago got takedowns. Thiago got position. And then Thiago made a couple of little mistakes, which he has absolutely fixed now. I've seen, I don't want to say holes. I just want to say that I've seen what happens with his tendencies when he gets put in those positions. So when you have somebody like Volkanovski, who I know is going to go into this fight 100% mentally ready. He's not going in knowing he's already lost. He's not going in thinking he believes he's going to win this fight, and that's where we can get so much valuable information from this matchup. Another nice thing is, I'm sure that Islam Makhachev doesn't even know what my name is, right? So when we do eventually fight someday, he's got, let's say, 8 weeks to get ready for me, where I've been getting ready for him my entire life.
Yeah. We're cutting that up.
Clip that.
Yeah, that is pretty good. Bookmark that.
Speaking of which, by the way, Dave, if people would like more Grant insight on Islam, you can watch us watch the fights on Millions this weekend.
There you go. I like that. There you go. Millions.co. Also, you ready for this one? If you want to go to Millions and get like a really cool t-shirt, you know what I mean?
Let's go.
Just got it ready.
Right.
Just in case.
I got a little shelf here. So
love it.
Got all these, you know what else it has on this shelf, Miss Elle Dawson? It has Gamebred Boxing 3 media passes. That was the first event you kind of did for Fight Bananas. You were there just this past weekend for PFL, by the way, in Orlando. How cool is it that Gamebred Boxing 3, we were there, we were covering, I was doing commentary on it. And then all of a sudden yesterday, Jorge Masvidal just like breaks the internet. Roy Jones Jr., Anthony Pettis, Vitor Belfort, Jacare, Jose Aldo boxing Jeremy Stevens. That's such a cool matchup. There's a lot more too. Pearl, there might be another matchup with a friend, a coach of yours at American Top Team in the near future. But just what's your first take when you're hearing all this crazy things about from Gamebred Boxing 4? And also one thing I heard, and I don't know if you agree with it, and I would love your take on it, is that I heard that a lot of people like it, some people don't, and they said it's like combat entertainment instead of combat sports. And a lot of people felt disrespected on it. And I'm the opposite. And you know how I feel about, I think anytime more fighters get money, I'm happy. Like the more times they can get another paycheck, I'm happy. And all these guys are getting another paycheck, and a big one I'm hearing. So I think this is a good thing for all combat sports.
I think that is a little bit of a low blow thing to say, especially because I think people are comparing it to the Jake Paul cards, which I don't think he is no longer combat entertainment. He was, and I think he is now a combat athlete. He's shown that he's progressed and he's able to compete. However, like I think they're looking at the YouTubers that are fighting each other.
Right.
And do you remember Fame? It was like all these like European celebrities, and they were absolutely terrible. There's like a girl that got really famous on it, and she's like the worst fighter I've ever seen in my life. So I understand seeing shows like that, and then people looking at this, and it's like, oh, it's all these retired, washed up guys, but it's not. Like Jose Aldo was still competing at the very highest level of the UFC up until he retired off of a loss to one of the best guys in the division.
And like, a lot of people thought, I know Merab held him against the cage a lot, but like it wasn't like a car wash Jose Aldo. Like, and a lot of people think Merab is going to be a future UFC bantamweight championship. I'm huge on Jose Aldo. Like, he grew so much on me, especially the second way, like he kind of moved down. You were like, no, I don't know if this is going to work. And he looked phenomenal for two first years. It's the king of Rio. It's Jose Aldo. And Jeremy Stevens is literally fighting in the PFL like last year. Like, that's going to be a great boxing match. It really is.
Yeah, no, I'm all for seeing that. Like, I think the same, like, Jeremy Stevens just got old, like in MMA years and in general, like, it'll still be fun. I still think it ends similarly to how their last fight ended. But, like, that will still be a great fight. Like, you still have high-level guys on that show. You also have, like, the Vitor Belforts, but they're so iconic.
Yeah.
And, like, they're just so iconic that it's not, like, I don't think it's the same as comparing it to two untrained athletes fighting each other. Yeah.
And let's just be honest. They're past their prime. They can't fight at the highest level in the UFC or PFL or Bellator, but they still, they want to lace them up, or they still think they have a little bit more to give. Or, of course, let's just be honest too, they still want a paycheck from all the hard work that they did put in. And Vitor Belfort, and I'm just throwing out one name, or Jacare Souza, on their climb up, the pay is a lot different 8, 12, 14 years ago to it is now. So it's just, maybe these guys are not, getting the pay that, some guys right now is. Maybe the co-main event, Yair Rodriguez is maybe making more money than Jacare Souza ever did. I'm not throwing that out exactly, but the pay has been, ascendant over the last 5, 7, 10 years, of course. I think it's a great thing that these guys are all getting another paycheck. This is great. I'm excited. It's in Milwaukee. That's going to be fun.
I think, too, another thing that, like, a lot of people don't look into it is they can compete with no expectations. Like, we don't care who wins. We want to tune in just to see these legends that we grew up watching fight compete again. And they get to compete. They get to make money. But like, if Jeremy Stevens beats Jose Aldo in this boxing match when they're both – do you care? Do I care? Does it hurt Jose Aldo's MMA legacy at all? The answer is no. Like, they get to make more money. They get to compete, because that's what we all love to do, is compete.
Right.
And it's a way for them to kind of give up MMA without having to fight these studs, these young guns that they're not necessarily – like, these young guys aren't necessarily better than them. They just have better bodies than them, if that makes any kind of sense.
Robin Aldo is the perfect example of that.
Yeah. So I love it. I think this is great for all of these guys.
Awesome. Very fun. I'm going to put you right in the spot. I usually don't do this. A fun question just popped in my head to both of you guys. What matchup in that same genre, Pettis and Roy Jones Jr., Vitor and Jacare, guys of that nature, Jeremy Stevens versus Aldo, throw out another matchup that you would be like, oh, this would be awesome. So Gamebred Boxing 5, you're matchmaking it. Two guys on the outskirts, or two guys that maybe just retired or still, doing work. And Pettis was in the co-finals for the PFL last year.
I think one matchup they kind of really dropped the ball on is Pettis versus Aldo. They were going to
that'd be fun.
They were going to fight for, I believe, the 145-pound belt. I don't quote me on that. They were going to fight after Anthony Pettis won the 55-pound belt. So he could have been the first double champion, or it was going to be they were set to fight, and then Anthony got hurt and had to pull out of that bout. So it's or maybe Aldo. I think Aldo was going up and he backed out, and that's when Anthony fought Gilbert. But it doesn't, like, I think that they have a story. They have not beef, but they have a background. They have the promotion already cut. I think they kind of dropped the ball on having a big matchup like that. And it makes a little bit more sense to me. I don't really get Roy Jones Jr. and Anthony Pettis. That was just kind of out of the blue. I think seeing Jose Aldo versus Anthony Pettis, that would have been like, oh, shoot, like they finally got it. Good for them.
I got one I just thought of the top of my head, and then Elle, you do next. You ready? How about Thiago Alves versus GSP in a boxing match?
Ooh, that would be awesome.
That'd be pretty cool. They fought in the UFC, just for fun, and we haven't seen GSP in a long time. Yeah, that would be a good one. Get Thiago a check.
I'm taking Thiago Alves.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
Dude, the pitbull for sure. Boxing? Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Have him kickbox.
Ooh.
Even better.
Savagery.
That would be.
No, how about you? Throw me one.
After seeing Anderson Silva like back at like just boxing, I would honestly him versus any of those older guys, like him and Pettis, or like I would love to see that.
Him with Pettis. I'm trying to think of a middle light heavyweight. Yeah. Because I think what I don't remember what he boxed Paul at, but I think it was in that 190. I think.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, that might be a little heavy then. I'm trying to think who.
I'll give you one. Anderson Silva versus Yoel Romero.
Ooh.
Oh my God, that's so good.
I feel like those were two guys, which is crazy because I'm pretty sure that when Yoel was in his prime, Anderson Silva was leaving his prime, but Yoel was older than Anderson somehow.
Yoel Romero is still in his prime.
Yoel Romero is Father Time's only split decision loss.
I love it.
That dude.
Yeah.
That's
for
a
sure. One person said Grant Dawson versus Drew Dober. Hey, we'll see.
In striking, you're crazy, bro. I'm not in MMA, when I can hump his leg, sure. But when we just have hands, I'm good, man.
Good.
That boy can box.
All right. Last 3 minutes, we'll let you guys run.
One more.
Okay.
Drew Dober, Dustin Poirier, boxing.
Ooh.
Big gloves. I like that.
That's a fun one to watch.
That's a fun one. Poirier Pettis is fun too.
I like that too.
That's a fun one too. All right. Wow, we did it. That was a question.
There you go, George. There's the next.
Yeah, Josh.
Next two
we're
cards.
doing his job for him for the next 2-3 months.
Honestly, we should get a check.
Yes, I agree. All right. So Conor McGregor is looks like officially back, kinda. So look, they're gonna do the Tough House. Looks like they're recording in May. Maybe you guys have any information about that, maybe not. But he's gonna fight Michael Chandler, which is really cool. Just to be honest, when I heard it was him and Tony, I felt, from afar, that's like, hey, Conor, here's one for you. And this one, to me, Michael Chandler, that's not for Conor. I think that's a humongous fight. I know this is probably a little bit too preemptive. I think Michael Chandler's going to defeat Conor. I think Michael Chandler he's fighting more guys. He's fighting more recently. He just fought Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje and Charles Oliver. He's been fighting the best guys on this planet. And I think Conor is not who he once was. So I think Chandler gets the job done. That's my 2 cents. But what's your take on them two being back? Ultimate Fighter's back. It looks like it's going to be a really, really big season. I'm hearing there's tremendous talent on that Ultimate Fighter cast as well.
Definitely.
So shout out to those guys for sure. But I think it's going to be a very cool next 3 months. What do you guys think on the whole spectacular of it?
I actually think that I think I'm leaning towards Conor winning that fight. I think Chandler has the skill advantage, absolutely. But I think that he makes poor decisions in fights. I think like if he takes down Conor and holds him down, which he's absolutely capable of doing, I think he could. But he scrambles too much. He creates room to get up where he doesn't need to, and I think he's gotten chinny as well. I mean, I say that, but then he goes 3 rounds with Justin Gaethje, so who knows? And Dustin.
And he got submitted by Dustin, not knocked out.
Yeah.
And thank you for saying that. Like I heard the same thing. For one, if you get hit by Gaethje and Poirier and something, he's literally fought the best guys in the world, even Oliveira, right? And Oliveira was throwing monsters over those last 2-3 years. He really, I've been hearing the chinny thing a little bit, and I kind of I'm happy you said that, Grant. I don't think he's chinny. He's going to get hit. I think he's very hit-to-bull. I don't think he's chinny yet. I don't think he's Chuck Liddell at the end when he gets hit. He falls, and it's over. Him versus Gaethje was an absolute war. Him versus Poirier was a war. And even Oliveira was a ground and pound TKO. But I think he's still there. He's got a good
man. But you said it yourself, is he's hittable. And the one thing that you don't want to be against Conor McGregor is hittable.
True.
We've seen guys like Jose Aldo who are very good strikers, very good at playing it safe, very good at not getting hit. Get hit and go down. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, though. I don't think this fight happens.
Wow.
I think they do the show. Conor's still not in the USADA testing pool, which means the soonest this fight can happen is 6 months if he did it now.
Right.
I think he's going to do this show for the next what is it, a 2-month show or like
but they haven't even
a month and a half. It's a month and a half long show.
Right.
I doubt he's going to get into the testing pool while he's doing the show. So it's like, Chandler's just going to sit out for another 6 months? I don't think the fight happens. I really don't. I think that it's going to be a great season. And let me just say how thankful I am that it's Michael Chandler and not Tony Ferguson, because if it was Tony Ferguson, that would be the worst season of The Ultimate Fighter.
Agreed.
Who cares what the talent is? And I know who everybody is in the house. That's going to be a great season. They got a lot of really good guys.
In
veterans,
2 great weight classes, too.
Right.
Yeah.
Veterans and up-and-comers. I know every single guy on that card. They're all spectacular. They would have had a really terrible coach and a really insane coach. Now they have a really, really good coach that's a little hittable, and kind of a bad coach that's going to really sell the show and get a lot of eyes on him. I'm telling you, whoever wins this show is going to get a lot of followers because of Conor.
Yeah.
Great points, man. Great.
And we might know who's going to win the show. We might.
That's such a good point, because I would assume you guys are like this too. Like when I grew up watching the sport, the Ultimate Fighter was so important, so vital. And of course, not even the fighters that were the coaches, but when Michael Bisping won, or of course when Nate won, or whoever won, they became like stars pretty quick. It was like, dude, these guys are someone to watch. Michael Chiesa, he won, and it was just like, it's something that gravitates with them long term. And I agree, like whoever, not even just the fight of Chandler and Conor, but whoever wins this show in both weight classes, to me, gets a huge ramp, a huge rocket launcher right away. And, who knows, you might create 2 more stars, including just the 2 main eventers. And that's why I haven't heard that yet, that you don't think this fight's going to happen. Wow. All right.
I can't see it happening. I don't see how it's like I'm 7 weeks out from a maybe fight, and I'm like, okay, I really hope this guy takes the fight, and I hope this gets set and put on paper, because I know that if it doesn't happen within like the next couple of weeks, it's probably not going to happen. You're talking 6 more months. That's half a year.
Yeah.
Like that is half a year. It could be almost 2024 by the time they fight again.
Yeah.
Like that's insane.
Yeah. No, great points. And you ready for this one? One thing that just kind of popped in my head. Maybe, you ready for this one? Maybe the UFC has already talked to Tony Ferguson, and they want Chandler to do the show, like you said, to probably be a better coach, have a good rivalry. And maybe they have Conor and Tony like as the backup plan. Maybe that's the fight they're going to do in the fall of 2023. And Chandler will get a big fight in the summer of 2023, like he should have. If it's Oliveira or Darush or something happens with Makhachev, something of that nature, maybe they, I still, the UFC 5 months ago when there was the Chimaev Diaz and all that stuff, it was just perfect how everything landed with other opponents. The UFC is smart, and let's just say maybe they have some back channels already working for this. Maybe
I could see them, for me, if I'm the UFC, the fight that I want to do is I want to do Conor versus Ferguson, like you just said, and I want to do Gamrot versus Chandler. Those are the fights, because you win no matter what. If Chandler loses to Conor, it's kind of like, what do you do with Chandler now? He's a superstar, but is he really? Whereas if you put Chandler versus Gamrot, no matter who wins that fight, you have a superstar that comes out of it. And you have somebody that's like, okay, now let me fight Conor if Chandler wins. Or when Gamrot wins, you have somebody that's like, hey, I'm ready for a title shot. I had a goof with Beneil Dariush. I'm back. I'm better than ever. I just beat this dude. Give me somebody that gives me a title shot. And I think that's a lot of fights that make sense. And Tony versus Conor, I don't think there's a better matchup for Conor than Tony Ferguson. I really cannot see in my head a way that Conor loses that fight unless he wants to lose that fight.
Right.
Literally.
It makes perfect sense too with rankings and future matchups. Like Conor can do this thing for the next 2-3 years if it's Ferguson and a returning Diaz, a Masvidal maybe in 2024. He can do these big fights. Chandler's still, what is he, 4th or 5th or 3rd in the rankings? Like he's still in the middle of the lightweight rankings. And of course, everything we're hearing too, they're going to fight at welterweight. Like to me, that's like, it doesn't make sense. And whoever wins this fight is going to say, hey, like their stardom is going to be so freaking big. If they want a title shot at lightweight, they're going to get it. Imagine if Michael Chandler defeats Conor McGregor at 170 and then gets Makhachev at 155. It's kind of a spit in the face to a lot of UFC lightweight. Just throwing that out.
And I think that division is kind of getting to a point. I think this is part of the reason they're choosing lightweight for the Ultimate Fighter. I think there's a lot of guys that are still in the rankings who are towards the end, like their expiration date's coming up. You know, you have Dan Hooker, you have Tony Ferguson, even Conor. Conor has fought how many times in the last 5 years?
Twice,
yeah.
Twice.
And so you have these guys that are just kind of sitting there. And even Chandler's even kind of doing it now too, where like Armin called out Chandler, which makes sense because Chandler, even though he's new to the UFC, like he's old to the MMA world, and Armin's trying to move up the rankings. And so it makes more sense to have a prospect fight an older guy or a vet, because then if the prospect loses, he needs more time. He goes back and he builds and builds and builds. If you have two prospects fight each other, you lose one either way.
Yeah, that's why Gamrot versus Sarukian didn't make any sense, because those were two of the best guys in the division. One went backwards and the other one went forward. You know, like I think it would have been better for Chandler versus Gamrot and Sarukian versus Dariush. That would have made way more sense.
Exactly.
And let's also be honest, as much as we know, right, Gamrot and Sarukian, to the casual or to the common fan, when that was I think it was actually the main event, it wasn't a pleasing main event to the casual. So it's like they're not even getting the credit they deserve for that victory. If they defeat a guy like Dariush or Chandler or Ferguson, that's immense credit. It's like, whoa, they just beat one of the top 5 superstars in the UFC. So I totally agree. All right, gotta let you go. We went for 40 minutes. Always appreciate your guys' time. Last little thing. 5 days ago, you guys were in Orlando, Florida for PFL Challenger Series. Elle doing media, Grant being there as a good husband. What was your just one take on the PFL Challenger Series?
It was so cool. Like I really loved seeing another promotion doing something similar to Dana White's Contender Series. I think that's huge for the future of the sport. Like to see just a whole card of just, and also that many female featherweights that are all like super athletic and really good and so young in their careers was so cool to see. But like girls with 2 or 3 fights, you know, being able to compete for a spot in a major promotion, to be able to take like steps toward that without just being thrown into a major promotion, which I think happens so much outside of the UFC. Love seeing that.
Right.
I liked it. I think that I would have liked it a lot. I thought that night was really good. You know, you had you had 4 fights with 3 finishes. That's something you don't see a whole lot with women. So I think that there's
true.
I think that there's a lot coming out of that. I think one thing that I would really like is if next time, like they do like 125, you know, they enter in 125, they enter 135, 155, these weight classes that I feel need to be in the tournaments that aren't, you know, I don't think 35 and 25 are in the tournaments. I think they need to be.
I think 25, they're planning to do one.
Yeah, 25, this is the first year. They actually have female flyweights coming up, I believe, in 2 or 3 weeks. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying. You're saying you want to develop the PFL. It's wild that like the PFL doesn't have middleweights. Like they don't exist. It's like
it's here's what it is. It's hard to take another promotion seriously as a contender with the UFC when they don't even have the same weight class or all the same weight class. It's the same with Bellator. Who's the best Bellator 125er? We don't know, because it's 135, right? Yeah. Kyoji should be at 125. Pettis should be at 125. Little Pettis, obviously, should be at 125. But these guys are fighting 35ers. So you're kind of like, are they losing because they're not as good, or are they losing because they're not as big? And I think that kind of diminishes
talent.
Kind of and just the promotion. You know, I think the biggest weight classes in Bellator that are like contenders with the UFC would be 55 and 85, right? Other than that, it's maybe kind 35. Of 35 is good. 35. No, 35 is good. But
that's the one. The 35 is the one in the tournament right now.
Right, they're the winner of this one. It's coming up though for the winners.
Okay.
They're doing lightweight now too, which is I think great. Which is a great.
Oh yeah, lightweight. That's what it is. They have some. I saw that lineup, and maybe not all 8 guys are great, and it's hard to get 8 top 10, top gear guys, but there's 4 or 5, top 10, top 15 lightweights on this planet. Like they have a really good set. And it's so funny when you guys mentioned that, because that's what I agree with immensely with. I talked to Sean O'Connell and he's like, man, Ray Cooper can fight any welterweight. And I know how you feel about Johnny, and Johnny can fight any middleweight. And I agree on both terms. Like I agree. The problem with Bellator and PFL, my 2 cents, and this is a whole nother podcast, and we'll do another 30 minutes on this. They just don't have the depth of middleweight. Like Johnny doesn't have 14 guys to go through. Like I just don't, and I talk about you probably too much, Grant, but as you being 14, 15, or 16 on the UFC roster, if you were in Bellator, you're in the top 3 today. You're number 1 or number 2, number 3 today. You're not 15. So I think that's where both of those promotions are lacking. They just don't have the depth in those high-end, rosters like the UFC.
Yeah.
But there you go.
Dude, 85 is hard already. But the thing about Johnny, now that you've brought him up, the thing about Johnny is he's beating these guys that were like Mousasi was at the top of the division. He didn't leave the UFC off of a losing streak. He didn't leave the UFC because he was getting old. He left because he knew that he could make more money. All the power to him. Johnny 50-45 to him. Like, easily. Then you have this one Russian dude that's clearly sauced out of his mind, which all the power to him. He's 30-2.
Yeah.
30-2. And he came from Russia. They don't fight losers there. They fight other Russians.
Yeah.
The dude is 30 he's 30-3 now, and Johnny arguably 50-45 to him too.
Suplex on his head, out of disrespect.
Him on his head.
I think it was Michelle Montague suplex.
I think if Johnny goes up to 205, which he's talked about doing, just kind of like, behind the grill, barbecue talk, he's talked about going to 205. I think if he does that, he wins that belt, which I think he would pretty easily. I think he's one of the greatest. He is the greatest 85er outside of the UFC easily. And I think that he should get a title shot. If he does go over to the UFC, he should get a title shot immediately.
Yeah. No, and that's the debate. I would love this. And like I said, we'll do it a different time for sure. How about Johnny Evelyn's 3 matchups in the future? Of course, the UFC. Israel Adesanya, Alex Pereira, and Robert Whittaker. Like those are all different, all unique. All humongous
all guys matchup. Johnny beat.
The toughest matchup there is Robert Whittaker.
I agree. Me too. I think him versus Whittaker is like insane. But he
walks through Pereira easily. I don't think he walks through Israel, but Israel. I think he wins. It could be 50-45.
Because it's so funny. So when I thought about that, I'm going to be brutally honest with you guys. I have him beating Pereira. I have him losing to Whittaker, and him versus Izzy. I have him actually beating Izzy because one thing I like what Johnny does in the middle of fights, if he's winning stand up or using the jab, he's going to stand up and use the jab. If he's winning wrestling or grappling, he's going to wrestle or grapple. I love his fight IQ in the fights. They change. And let's just be honest, I think he would just wrestle Israel Adesanya for 24, 25 minutes, and I think he would beat him. I don't want to say is easy, but I think he would have a good night against Israel Adesanya. I agree. All right. There we go. All right. 50 minutes. We did it.
Let's make it an even hour. No.
I know. It's awesome. You guys are the absolute best. UFC 284 Saturday night. Islam Makhachev, Alexander Volkanovski, Josh Emmett versus Yair Rodriguez. Wednesday night, Ben and Bananas is back. Elle Dawson, myself, and Ryan Quinn. We're going to win some money. Talking some shop, and that's it. You guys have anything else?
Tune in on Millions this week.
There you go.
Link in my bio.
Tune in on Millions. Buy a T-shirt, and let us know if that person accepts that piece of paper from you, Grant.
I will for sure. You'll be the first to know.
All right, guys. Be good. Appreciate you.